There we go. So let's begin. Josie, why don't we do the welcome?
Sure, happy to. Well, first of all, welcome to all our wonderful guests that are here tonight. Thanks so much for being with us. And a special, very warm Kingston, Canadian welcome to our lovely Sue Phillips from Manhattan, New York. We're very excited about this.
Thank you so much.
Oh, our pleasure. Believe me, thank you for being here. So Sue, for those of you don't know, which is we've been promoting this so much, Sue Phillips is a perfumer, owner, founder of Scenterprise, and author of The Power of Perfume. She's now helping COVID survivors regain their sense of smell, which is absolutely remarkable. Gabby will be telling you a little bit more about her background and how she got to this point. So I'm also here to let everybody know that thank you for joining us, because you also have a chance of winning a lovely prize from the Hudson's Bay store here in Kingston. And we want to do a shout out for the amazing support from the Hudson's Bay store here in Kingston over the many years for Women Mean Business Network. They've been wonderful to work with. And especially with much thanks to Carol Letourneau, because she's the customer experience manager for the Hudson's Bay store. And if you haven't been there, customer experience, absolutely wonderful. One of the best stores here in Kingston. And that's for real. I actually believe that. I'm telling you the truth. So one of the lucky winners today will win a prize of a $100 gift card from the Hudson's Bay. Plus, the winner will receive a signed copy of Sue Phillips' recent book, The Power of Perfume. So at the end of the presentation, Gabby will pick the winning name, and we'll let you know here as well. So a couple of housekeeping notes. You can place your questions in the chat section of your computer. Please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation, but we'll have time for question and answer period afterwards, after Sue's presentation. Also, just to let you know, if you're not aware of it, we are recording this presentation. So for anybody who has missed it, or if you want to watch it again, it will be in our YouTube channel. And also we'll be emailing everybody here a link to that video as well. So I think that is all. And now I'm going to introduce my beautiful business partner, Gabby Eaton. Gabriella.
Thank you. Well, it is a great pleasure to introduce our new friend to the Women in Business community here in Kingston, and to our business leaders and business owners, Sue Phillips from Manhattan, an exciting and a beautiful city of New York. I love it. We learned about Sue on a very special podcast, an interview that Claudia Harvey, CEO, founder of Digit Apparel and co-partner, president of BG Wealth, hosted. And many of you attended our breakfast session when we brought her in from Toronto back in 2018. And that interview was so inspiring that I said, we just got to reach out to this fabulous Sue Phillips and see if we can line her up. So this has been about 6 months that we've been working on this day. So we are so grateful that it's come to life. Sue has traveled great distances, initially from Johannesburg, then to Cape Town, then to the Big Apple, New York. From being a child actress, which we'll hear more about, to a fragrance branding marketer, speaker, author, and CEO founder of Scenterprises, Inc., formerly the Centarium of New York's first custom perfumery. Global luxury beauty companies such as Elizabeth Arden, Lancome hired Sue for her marketing expertise, followed by Tiffany and Company, who recruited Sue as a VP of Marketing Fragrances, where she spearheaded the development, creation, and launch of the successful Tiffany Perfume for their 150th anniversary internationally. I'm just going to let someone in quickly here. Thank you. Sorry. From Tiffany, Sue established her company, Scenterprises, Inc., designed and launched fragrances for many celebrities, Society of Burberry, Burberry for Men, Dion from Furstenberg, and many other well-known brands. Throughout Sue's journey, her passion, dedication, never giving up, resulted in her being the forefront of innovation and always delivering quality products and experience to her clients. I'm just enthralled that you're here. Sorry, I don't know why I always get emotional. In 2020, she was selected as top fragrance and marketing expert of the year by the International Association of Top Professionals. And a tribute to her was made on the Jumbotron on Times Square. Can you imagine? Big congrats, Sue. Sue has a wonderful, inspiring story to share from her early days to what she's doing now. So let's give her a big, hearty Canadian welcome, and hopefully one day we can all meet in person. Sue?
Oh, thank
compose
you.
myself here for a minute. Sorry.
Gabby, that was so beautiful and so heartfelt. Thank you so much. My goodness, you must have spent so much time doing all this research, because you encapsulated it beautifully. And thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to meet with you personally, and Josie, and your wonderful guests, Loretta and Catherine, and Janet and Judy, and everybody who's here listening. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I really, really am very, very excited and very honored to be here.
Well, I thought we'd start off, Sue, with your beginnings of your journey from Johannesburg, being that child actress. Please share that with us, how that all began.
You know, well, let me just say that at 10 years old, my mother came to me, and well, first of all, my mother was an amazing artist and homemaker and calligraphist and musician and singer, and I got my creativity from her. And she was very friendly with a female impresario, a Broadway type director and producer in Johannesburg, South Africa. And she had come to my mother to say, Grace, I'm putting on a Broadway type play, and I'm looking for a 10-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old young girl, and I know Sue is your daughter, and I'd like to talk to her, and can she audition? So I did, and I got the part. And because I was 10 at a school, of course, we had to interact with other and have an interval with different young women, so we couldn't be at the theater every single night. So there was an interchange between the other two young women who also had auditioned and got the role. So that got me my acting bug. It was amazing. I loved it. It was a Broadway type show called Raw Like a Dove, a British comedy. It was very funny. It was quite lovely, and it was not risque at all, but there was some risque type parts in it. Anyway, that got me my acting bug. And from then on, I decided that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an actress. And along the way, I was also singing because of my musical ability from my mom. So I became a singer and an actress. And I then decided that I wanted to study acting and singing. And I went to my college in Cape Town called University of Cape Town, and I studied speech and drama. And that was an amazing way for me to really understand theater. Well, lo and behold, I decided that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a singer and an actress. And I went to audition at RADA I'm just moving the computer. I went to audition at RADA in London, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And I thought that would be amazing if I could really become an actress and study seriously. Well, sadly, I didn't get into RADA, but I realized how much I loved theater. And on the way back from London to South Africa, I came to New York to see my brother. Well, New York suddenly got me going. I just fell in love with the energy of New York City and going to Broadway. And I decided then and there that was it. I'm coming to New York. And at the time, South Africa was very politically challenged. And I just felt that it was very insular. People didn't travel that much. And I had already traveled to London, and I'd gone to Europe with my girlfriend. And I thought, this is it. I wanted to come to New York. So now I had to start the whole idea of wanting to act in New York City. And I went to an immigration attorney, and he had said to me, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a singer and an actress. He said, well, forget about that, young lady. There are 25,000 out-of-work singers and actresses. We don't need another one who's not, legal here. What else do you do? And my mother had always said to me, if I'm going to be in theater, she said, I want you to have something very solid to fall back on. So those words rang in my ear. And when he said to me, well, what else do you do? I said, I had done secretarial work. And he said to me, were you any good? And the way he asked me the question, I knew that was my ticket into America. And I said, yes, I was great. He said, okay, when can you start? Because he's an immigration attorney and he wanted somebody to help him with his legal work and assistant and executive secretarial and admin work. And I said, but I haven't done this in years. And I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take 2 weeks and I'll go and do a refresher course and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. So I actually researched, in those days, they didn't have Google. I researched the yellow pages and I looked at a executive secretarial colleges or institutions, and I enrolled in one for a refresher course for shorthand and typing. Again, this is pre-internet and pre-everything. I feel like I'm speaking in the dark ages because all they do, legal people, they had to have secretarial work who do shorthand. And nobody even knows what shorthand is today, but I think all of you do know, right? So I got my shorthand skills back up to quite actually 120 words a minute, and typing to about 80 words a minute, or vice versa, I can't remember. Anyway, I started with him and he promised me that he would petition me for my green card while I stayed with him and worked for him. And I said, that's fine. I promise you I'll stay and work for a year. In the meantime, I wasn't going to let my theater and my singing and acting go to, waste. And I found acting clubs and singing clubs. And at night I would go and sing and act, and I joined theater groups. And so during the day, I worked as his legal assistant. At night, I would go and sing and act, and that's what I did. And after 7 months, I got my green card, but I had promised I'd stay for a year. And so a year to the day, I got my week's vacation, and I went to a few headhunters, and believe it or not, I got 3 job offers in 1 week. So by this stage, people knew what I was doing, and I was singing and acting and doing this legal work. And so one job was to be at a bank, the First Boston Bank. And I'll never forget the gentleman who interviewed me was this very tall, handsome gentleman. He was head of marketing. And he said, I like your entrepreneurial spirit and I'd like to hire you. I didn't feel banking was for me. So I said, well, thank you, but no, thank you. The next job offer I got was to work in fashion at a company for Pierre Cardin. And I didn't feel at that point that I knew much about fashion. So I said, thank you, but no, thank you. The third job offer was the one that clinched it for me. It was to be the executive assistant at Elizabeth Arden for cosmetics company. And I thought that would be great. And I worked for the president of the company. By this stage, I was still singing and acting at night. I worked with him, and they would all come and see me acting and singing at night. And I became sort of like their protege. And what happened was, I would say to the president of the company, we had a really very good relationship. And every few weeks we would talk about my upward mobility. I said, Joe, I don't want to be your assistant for the rest of my life. This is just a stepping stone for me. And he often would talk about different aspects. One day he called me and he said, Sue, there's a position in training. I said, well, okay. He said, well, what do you know about training? I said, all I know is that you have to train the people behind the counter to sell the products. And he said, I've seen you perform, I've seen you act, I've seen you in front of people. You'd be a great training director for the company for fragrance. He said, however, you don't know anything about fragrance, do you? I said, no. He said, well, I said, I love it. And I know how it makes me feel. And he said, well, in order for you to get the position, you have to go to Macy's and study and observe and realize what the customer profile is all about when you meet with people. So I said, me at Macy's? I'm a college graduate. I don't want to work at Macy's. And he said to me, it'll be the best experience you ever have, learning to deal with a customer. Yeah. So lo and behold, I went off to Macy's for my 3-month orientation. It was amazing. Macy's in Herald Square, the largest department store in the world. And there I was working with women who had been at Macy's for 20 and 30 years. And they were selling fragrances behind the counter. So I looked and observed, I learned from them. I realized that the little old ladies who came to, you know, they were so crazy and wanted that beautiful Chloe perfume, and they would peel off the dollar bills. And this was their wonderful way of having a beautiful experience. And the fancy ladies in their fur coats would walk by and they wouldn't want to buy it. But it was really interesting. So after my 3-month orientation, I now officially became the National Training Director for the Fine Fragrance Division of Elizabeth Arden. I traveled around the country. Now, at that time, I didn't set up the training schools. The salesperson in the area would have certain accounts, whether it be Macy's in California or Dallas or different stores, the different department stores and specialty stores would arrange training schools so that the people behind the counter, the beauty advisors, would come into the stores and be trained about the new product, the new launch, the new fragrance introduction, or whatever it was. And I was the National Training Director. So I enlightened them, I inspired them, I motivated them. I talked about the different brands that we had. And at that time, it was Chloe for fragrance, Lagerfeld for men, and Burberry. And I would set up these training schools. I always would have beautiful music playing. I would have fragrance spraying in the air. And I had lovely visuals and audio visuals. And I would explain to them the fragrance, and they would be so inspired. And the wonderful thing is that every time that I was in a market, which was in a certain area, a region or a market where we did these training schools, sales would go sky high because they were so motivated. They couldn't wait to get back to the counter to sell the products that they'd learned so much about. So it was an amazing experience for me to realize that, as I said earlier, New York is not America. And it was a marvelous experience for me to learn the regional differences. You know, people are so different in the South or the North or the East or the West. People in Houston are very different than people in Boston or San Francisco or New Orleans. And understanding the differences, you know, not everybody is in New York City, we all wear black. Not everybody wears black around the country. So it was really interesting. And after 2 years of traveling extensively around America, I went back to the president. I said, you know, I've been traveling like crazy 90% of the year. I love what I do, but it's exhausting and I want to really get ahead. I don't think that training is going to ultimately be where my career should be. I'd like to get into the marketing because I felt that marketing was really where it's going to be. So I landed up in color cosmetics for Elizabeth Arden. They promoted me to product development. I was there for 2 years, and then they promoted me to marketing for fragrance. And that was where I absolutely fell in love with the aspect of marketing and coming up with new products and coming up with marketing strategies and coming up and looking at the competition and seeing, well, what the other companies are doing with fragrance and what we should be doing. And then, lo and behold, I got a job offer from Lancome, which was Elizabeth Arden's biggest competitor at the time. And it was to be marketing director for a French company at Lancome. And I knew that Elizabeth Arden would be very disappointed if I left, but I also felt that this was my way of expanding my horizons and my career path, as opposed to having always been starting as a training director at Elizabeth Arden and working for the president in his executive suite. So I landed up at Lancome, and it was an amazing opportunity to work for a beautiful luxury French company. How many of you do remember the fragrance Magie Noir?
I do.
Anybody?
I do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on Magie Noir. Now, at that time, Lancome's whole business direction was for makeup and treatment. And their emphasis was on really expanding the fragrance, the makeup and the treatment business. But I was such a fragrance lover that I felt that it was important to me to really expand and increase the sales for Magie Noir. And they used to call me Miss Magie because I was all about Magie Noir and fragrance. And then ultimately they introduced Trésor, and I was working on the introduction of the fragrance Trésor. So I was at Lancome for 4 years. I also got the responsibility to develop a men's fragrance line called Programme Homme, a treatment line for men, which I enjoyed very much working on. And then lo and behold, I got a call from a headhunter 4 years after I started at Lancome to interview for a position of vice president at Tiffany. And they wanted to introduce a new Tiffany, well, they wanted to introduce a Tiffany perfume for their 150th anniversary. And the gentleman who interviewed me, the headhunter, was Frank Shields. How many of you remember Brooke Shields or know of Brooke Shields?
Yes.
So Brooke is the actress, and her father, Frank, was the headhunter at the time, and he had heard about me and found me and interviewed me and thought I'd be really great for Tiffany. And so I landed up at Tiffany as vice president of marketing at Tiffany. Now, ladies, if you'd have told me growing up in South Africa that one day I would be vice president of marketing and fragrance development for Tiffany and Company, I'd say you're crazy. But it happened.
Wonderful America there. So
exactly, wonderful America. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. They had actually been developing the idea of a Tiffany fragrance for their 150th anniversary. I got the position. The day that I got the position, after my third or fourth interview, my boss, my future boss, handed me two submissions that were in contention for the Tiffany perfume. And I don't know if you heard the story, Gabby, but I got the fragrances, and before I left the building and before I even got into the elevator, I sprayed them because I was so excited to spray them. I sprayed them. And I was so disappointed.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I was so disappointed because I didn't feel that the quality of the fragrance represented the sophistication, quality, and beauty of the Tiffany fragrance. And that started a whole nother situation of, for me, finding my voice and finding my courage to speak up for what I believed in. And it was a very interesting lesson. You know, I go back to my roots, going back to South Africa. We were never really encouraged to speak up, to really, vocalize what our thoughts and our opinions were. Growing up in South Africa, it was a very closed society. You didn't talk about anything contentious, nothing about sex or race or religion or money or anything, contentious. And so those were the sort of mores that I grew up with. And now coming to America and coming to New York, where everybody talks about everything, talks, wildly about everything, I suddenly said to myself, what do I do? They've been working on these two fragrances for a year and a half or 2 years. They hired me to be the vice president. I don't think these are the right quality. What do I do? So I had resigned. I was just about, as I got into the elevator that day, that was a Friday, I then went in on Monday and I resigned from Lancome. So I have to give my 2 weeks notice. And during those 2 weeks, I came up with a strategy and came up with some sort of ideas of how to handle this difficult situation, because I thought of two things that could have happened. Number one, I won't say anything. They wanted to launch the fragrance in September and they hired me in January. So I'd go along, figure out which one of the fragrances would work and decide, okay, we'd launch one or the other. And then in September when we launched, I said, way back then, I didn't think it was right. I said, no, I can't do that. I have to really have the courage of my convictions. So the second option was to contact my future boss and say, I think that I might have an idea about the fragrance. I'd love to talk to you, which I did. I contacted her and I said, I'd like to come in and talk to you because I'm not sure these are the right quality. She said, but Sue, you're starting in a week or two. I said, yes, I know, but it's really important to me. So I went in and I talked to her. And to her credit, she said, well, if you don't think they're right, let's, go down to the chairman. We walked down to the chairman's office. And he said, well, she said, Sue doesn't think these submissions are right, but we've been working on them for a while. He said, well, we hired her, let her fix them. So I started Tiffany and went to work in Paris and fixed the Tiffany fragrance. And that was a way of me really realizing how important it is to stand up. And if you believe in something passionately, you must speak up.
100%. What an example. Very good example of what you went through there. Good for you.
Thank
And
you.
so now from Tiffany's, what happened after Tiffany's? I think how did you start your company? What led to that? How did that evolve?
Yes, so I left Tiffany to have my daughter. I'd had a few, so in between I got married, I had my daughter, and I had some complications. And so that's when I thought, I've waited long enough and I'll have my daughter, but I really wanted to start my career. And I had never really thought about being in business. I was always going to be a theatrical singer and actor. And when I started, Elizabeth Arden and Lancome and Tiffany, I just couldn't sing and act anymore because, I couldn't go on the road and I just didn't have the time. And so the fact that I was able to work from home, I thought would be a way for me to really start my business. And I called my company Scenterprises. Actually, I didn't. I called it Sue Phillips Enterprises. And one morning, about 4:00 in the morning, this kept on ringing in my mind. Sue Phillips Enterprises. That's a terrible word. It's terrible. Scent and Enterprises. So I kept on thinking. It came Scenterprises. I wrote it down, and that was it. That's how I came up with my company name, Scenterprises. And I started consulting. And the first consulting assignment I got was to spearhead and develop the Burberry fragrance project. Went off to London, met with the people from Burberry and developed and designed and created and launched a fragrance called Society by Burberry, and then Burberry for Men. This was in the sort of late 80s. And early 90s where, things were just amazing. So many celebrity fragrances and designer fragrances were launching and proliferating. I worked with Trish McAvoy. I developed her fragrances. Avon contacted me. I worked at Avon for 5 years as a project leader on a consulting basis, all under my company, but worked with them, pretty much with all these companies almost on a full-time basis, but still under my consulting company. And so things were going swimmingly along. I was making tons of money. I was earning all these wonderful fragrances. And then suddenly 2008 happened. Mm-hmm. And that was a wake-up call. So suddenly all the consulting dried up and nobody wanted to, hire consultants anymore. And it was at that point that I decided that I had learned a lot about fragrance, and I'd always known about the British term bespoke, which really refers to custom tailoring and customizing and personalization. And it wasn't a very well-known term in America at that point, but it really referred to British tailoring, and usually men's suiting, where men would get these British suits made, customized for their specific measurements. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, why not do custom perfumes? And I started to develop custom fragrances. Well, people said, what are you doing? Tupperware parties for perfume? And they started they were laughing. And I said, wait, just you wait. Anyway, it took me about 3 or 4 years to develop all these beautiful perfumes. And I had learned a lot about perfuming at this stage. And I started to work really basically from my apartment. I somehow, by this stage, computers were out there, social media, the internet, Google was happening. I started to put some words out and publicly advertising what I was doing, and started to get some press, and was written up as one of the best places to make custom perfumes from my apartment, no less. Anyway, and then I started to think about how I could expand, and lo and behold, So many things have happened to me serendipitously. And I have to say, I am so excited that when opportunities do open, you have to be willing to allow them to come in and sort of just figure out that this is the right time when opportunities open to take them, because they might not arise again, or different opportunities. And so I had never thought even of opening a perfume studio. But again, lo and behold, I had met somebody and they knew what I was doing and said, you know, Sue, I have a little place downtown in Tribeca. It's a very trendy area in New York City. Would you like to come and see it? And I went to see it. It was literally a hole in the ground. in Tribeca, it was in the basement in this loft building in a beautiful, very trendy street. And I went, and it was dark and it was gloomy and dreary. But again, thanks to my mom, I have a vision. I was creative. I knew that I could fix it up with lighting and some lovely decoration and all her paintings. And I transformed it into this beautiful little oasis in the heart of Tribeca. You went down the rinky-dink stairs, which I painted on my own, literally my hands and feet. I painted the stairs and turned it into the Centarium. And now, lo and behold, people started to hear about it, and people would come down, and it was sort of this wonderful sort of surprise value, where they came down the stairs in this sort of dreary kind of building, and suddenly there was this oasis with beautiful music playing and my mother's glorious paintings and fragrance in the air. And it was just a beautiful respite and an oasis in the heart of Tribeca. Nobody wanted to leave. And I started to develop custom fragrances there. And I created custom fragrance experiences for men and women. We did corporate events, team building events. I had bridal showers. It wasn't very big, but it was cozy enough and large enough that I could have 20 people there or 30 people. And people like Jamie Foxx found me, Katie Holmes found me, Zendaya, all these celebrities found me. And it was just lovely to have them meet me, for me to create a custom fragrance experience for them. Well, what was the next big chapter in my life? 2019 happened, something called COVID. So March the 6th, 2019 was the last big event that I did publicly, and everything shut down. Manhattan literally shut down. And I thought, what do I do? You know, I'm a single woman-owned business and I've got to do something. And I said, okay, I'm writing a book. So I started to write my book. And it was a labor of love. And I had actually done a few events at the National Arts Club. I don't know if you remember the National Arts Club, but it's a beautiful club. And I had done a seminar and a presentation with them in 2017 or 18. And I had said to them at one point, I'd love to do an event. So they said, okay, we'd love you to do, oh, I know what happened. I said, I'm writing this book. I'd love to do an event with you. And the event was set for 2019. Well, 2019 came and they said, Sue, you know, we're closing down. We're not doing anything, but we'll put you in for 2020 around Valentine's Day. Well, I started to write the book. And then when COVID happened, I don't know, things just, you know, people binge watching Netflix, and I was really working hard. And then at one point I said, you know, is this really going to happen? And I was about ready to give up, although I never give up. I have a motto, never give up. And just as I was thinking of, I was so despondent about, gosh, there's no business, there's no events, no one's wanted to buy fragrance. What am I going to do? I don't have my studio. What do I do? And I was about to give up, and I got an email from the lady saying, okay, we're opening up and we're going to do a virtual launch of your book in March of 2020. March 2020. And that just, you know, basically got me going again. And I said, I better finish this book. So I had done it about 3/4 way, and I finished the book. And we launched to a Zoom session like this. There were over 700 people on the National Arts Club launch for my book. And I'm very excited that this is the book, The Power of Perfume.
I love it.
How to choose a word. And I just want to show you my inspiration. This is my mom. It's hard to see in the light.
Oh, there you go. No, we can see it.
And
Wow.
that's my daughter, Romy.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Thank you. And I dedicated the book to both of them. And I just felt that I needed that sort of impetus to finish the book. So I did. And it's been amazing. Now, what's happened is when we launched the book, somebody that I worked with wanted to get NBC. NBC heard about it and they wanted to do a story about me. And this is just this year, March. I launched it this year, March, April, May. It seems this year has already gone by so quickly. I can't believe it's already November.
Yeah.
And they said, Sue, we'd love to do a story about your book and your career, but have you ever thought about helping people who've lost their sense of smell from COVID? And I said, well, no, not really. But they said, do you think you can help them? I said, I'll certainly try. So they brought somebody in to meet with me. By this stage, I had opened up a new studio at a pop-up boutique on East 64th Street. So they came to East 64th Street to Vanessa Noel. She's a shoe designer, had a beautiful shoe boutique. She had closed her boutique because of COVID. So I sort of went in there and was able to be there for about a year. And this woman came in, she had not been able to smell for 13 months. So I took her on my fragrance journey, which is what I do when I meet people to create their own custom fragrance. And I have 18 blends. And after the 13th one, she suddenly stopped and she said, I smell something and it's beautiful. And she started to cry.
Oh,
I am such a softie and I get so emotional. And Gabby, you and me both. And I got so emotional because I saw how impactful this was. Here was a woman who had not been able to smell or taste for 13 months. And she was able to smell the 13th fragrance that I showed her. And it was very, very, very emotional. I mean, I was emotional. The TV crew was emotional. NBC was emotional. And then people heard it. It was broadcast, and many, many companies contacted me. And I have now since had so many interviews and so many people who have contacted me and have been recommended. I've helped over about 100 people right now, either in person or on Zoom. And it's been remarkable. And what it tells me is that people really, really are so devastated when they lose their sense of smell and taste. And so what I have done in the interim now is I just launched my little scent kit. So this is the scent kit, which these are the 18 fragrances. So these are small little sample bottles of them. And I have a whole chart, a key chart of what the fragrances are.
okay. Oh, okay. Wow.
So they do, they go through the one by one, they're numbered from 1 to 18. And what we've done is we've really helped them to smell with their brain. So what's so interesting, and this is what I've learned over the last 4 decades of my career in America, is when we are born, we smell automatically. Nobody teaches us how to smell. Nobody teaches us how to breathe. So it's an automatic response. So we go through life smelling, breathing, tasting, and suddenly one day you can't smell anymore. And naturally you can't taste because our sense of smell is so tied into our sense of taste. And it is devastating. People lose their joie de vivre. They lose interest in life because, I'll tell you why. Our most powerful sense is our sense of smell. Our strongest is our sense of sight. And what's interesting is that studies have been done psychologists and neuroscientists that our most powerful sense is our sense of smell, because it connects the olfactory bulb, which is behind the eyes, to the limbic system, which is in the brain. And those neuro pathways connect. And when you walk down the street and you smell something, and you smell something that reminds you of a past association or a memory or a person, you can literally stop dead in your tracks and be transported back to that situation. That's happened to me so many times, especially around this time of year, in fall or summer or springtime. I can walk down the street and suddenly the wind will blow and I stop, because suddenly I'm transported back to my childhood in South Africa when I smell something. So it's so powerful. Yes, I just got a note from Catherine. Yes, people with dementia lose their sense of smell. What's so interesting, and sadly, my beautiful mother landed up with dementia and ultimately with Alzheimer's. So I've done a tremendous amount of work with people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and now with COVID. And I will tell you that what makes me so incredibly humbled is, and so emotional, is to see how people have different reactions. You know, because our sense of smell is so tied into our sense of taste, either people try and eat a lot to try and get back their sense of taste. So, of course, they don't feel good. They start to put on weight, and that's a disaster. Or they lose all sense of wanting to socialize, because socialization revolves around food. Let's meet for lunch, for breakfast, for tea, for coffee, for dinner, for celebrations. And when people can't smell or taste, they don't want to socialize. So they retract from society. So nobody knows how powerful our sense of smell is until we lose it. And I will tell you honestly that studies have been done, and I worked with a Dr. Robert Henkin. In fact, he did a nice little testimonial for the back of my book. He is the head of the Smell and Taste Clinic in Washington, D.C. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I was writing articles about fragrance and all the sensory aspects for a magazine called Glow Magazine. I was their beauty director. And I found Dr. Henkin, and he is the head of the Smell and Taste Clinic in Washington, D.C. And I contacted him and interviewed him. And at that time, he said to me, Sue, there are 25 million Americans who lose their sense of smell and taste every year through either viral infections, pneumonia, car accidents, different, neuro problems and so on. And people never thought about it. Nobody ever talked about it. But now possibly the only positive thing about COVID has been the acceleration of awareness of our sense of smell. And so now people, if they do happen to land up getting COVID and they lose their sense of smell, it's a trigger. They immediately know that. So I've been helping many people, and I'm really absolutely thrilled and delighted that I've been able to help people with this. And I think it's also because the fragrances that I have are very high quality perfumes. They're multidimensional. They're not single notes. A lot of people have been using essential oils, and an essential oil is one note. It's a single lemon note, or a eucalyptus, or a coffee note, or a rose note. But, we live in a multidimensional world. Think about all the colors and the sounds and the different multi-sensory aspects in our world. So I like to tell people to try and smell with their brain.
Wow. I just have to say, wow. Oh my goodness. We had some other questions here and comments. Let me just quickly go through that, Sue.
No, I've talked too much. I think
no, not at all. No, this is great.
Amazing.
So we covered the dementia. Thank you, Catherine, for asking that.
Yes.
Judy said, someone had on my grandfather's cologne on and the memories came flooding back.
Yes. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that a wonderful, that's what people do. You could go up to the attic, or you can smell your father's cologne or your mother's perfume, or a scarf, or a blouse or a coat, and the memories come flooding back. Absolutely.
And it says here, Loretta stated, I lost my sense of smell and taste, and after a head injury, and it was restored with acupuncture in her case. But it's good to know there's another source now that we
Yes.
can direct people to, right?
Yes.
And we're getting some great comments, fascinating and so inspiring.
Thank you.
One question we had is France or Paris, France, still the capital of fragrances in Paris, France? Is that sort of where it's still happening in the world right now?
Yes. And shall I tell you why?
Why is that?
I'll tell you why France became the capital. So I have to go back. You know, you asked me one question, you asked me what the time is, and I'll tell you how to build a watch. You know, Gabby, when I have to tell everybody, when Gabby invited me to talk, I said, Gabby, what do you want me to say? She said, Sue, just tell your story. I said, really? She said, yeah, just speak, just speak. I said, you don't want me to prepare anything? She said, no, you have a fascinating story, just tell your story. So you're asking me about, oh, I'm going to tell you why Paris became the capital. So I have to go back thousands and thousands of years. So the word perfume, does anybody know what the word perfume means?
No.
You know what? Never looked it up, but yes.
All right. It comes from the Latin perfumum, which means through smoke. Per, through.
Oh,
fumum,
okay.
smoke, Latin.
Yeah.
So in the ancient Egyptian rituals, what they would do is they would make sacrifices to the gods, and they would put on an altar of wood all the elements that they wanted to offer to the gods. And so they would light the elements, they would burn it, and through the beautiful aromas wafting into the air came the fumes and the wafting up of the beautiful aromas. And so that was the start of fragrance or perfumery from thousands and thousands of years ago. And it went from the Egyptians to the Romans, to the Greeks, to the Macedonians. All the different cultures throughout the lands, throughout the centuries, used fragrance for religious ceremonies. So much so that in the 13th century, in medieval times, they used galbanum, and they would put them in these incense holders, and they would swing them backwards and forwards, and the galbanum would be a way for repentant sinners to come back to the fold, for sinners to repent, to come back. And so even today in Catholic churches, you have these incense holders going backwards and forwards. So this went on through the centuries. So in a little town near Paris called Grasse, Grasse, I'm sure many of you have heard of it or been there. The foliage and the earth and the light was so beautiful and was so verdant that there were many, many animals growing, and also the beautiful lavender fields and roses would bloom there, and flowers and petals. So the farmers realized that this is a very, very lush, very fertile area. And because there was so much cattle, they had to do something with the animal hides. So the animals would eat the grass and eat all the beautiful, foliage. But they started to realize that the cattle would be very worthwhile for leather goods. So they took the leather animal hides and they softened the hides with chemicals. The chemicals were so harsh and smelled so bad. But guess what? Nature provided. There were all those beautiful lavender fields and the rose fields and so on. So they started to extract all the oils from the rose and the flowers. And there were different technologies that emerged. Something called enfleurage. Enfleurage is a way of taking all the petals. They would pick the petals at 4 o'clock in the morning and put them on a bed of wax or bed of fat, and the oils from the petals would seep into the fat, and then they would separate the oil from the fat, and they would take the actual beautiful petal rose oils or the lavender oils. And that became a way for them to scent the chemicals to counteract the bad chemical odors that were softening the leather. And they made scented leather gloves and scented leather goods. And they gave to Catherine de Medici scented leather gloves. And that's where the expression walking hand in glove comes from. So Grasse became the perfume capital of the world and still is today. So that's how perfume happened, how perfume started. But today, the finest sandalwood comes from India. Beautiful, Morocco, the Middle East has beautiful oud wood, sandalwood. incense, musk. And so now today, many, many different cultures and different countries are developing beautiful natural ingredients. But yes, today still perfume is still considered made in France. Perfume is still considered the best.
Wow. What a fascinating story. I never knew that. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to see any other comments. Cash is online. Amazing. Well done. I wanted to, just wants to write amazing, amazing over and over again. So there you go.
Thank you.
She said, Judy's online. She said, you changed my mind about musk. I used to think I hated, but now I think differently. Yes, she calls the musk. So
let me tell you about musk, Judy. Would you like to know about musk?
Sure. Thank you.
I have a lot of stories. So perfumers have been interesting. Perfumers have been looking for interesting ingredients for centuries, and they travel the oceans, the forests, the cities, and so on. So how did they find about musk? How did they find out about musk? So musk comes from the deer or the civet cat. And when the deer or the civet cat gets a little frisky, shall we say, they make certain secretions. How or why those perfumers found those secretions, we'll never know, but they did. And musk was beautiful. It was very pungent. It was very, very deep, very sensual, very sexy. But today we don't use anything from animals in perfumery, modern day perfumery. So musk today is usually made either synthetically with chemicals or from plants. I have a beautiful musk, which my musk is from coriander and natural plant musks, like sort of a coriander and an arrowroot. It doesn't have that pungency that real musk has, but it's a little sweeter and cleaner. But do you know where ambergris comes from? Anybody?
No.
The ambergris is also from animals, but this time it's from the sperm whale, the male whale. So the male whale, when he ingests cuttlefish, the bones from the cuttlefish irritate his stomach lining. So what does he do? He wants to get rid of it. And what does he do? He regurgitates. And the sweet, sticky substance washes up on the shore. So there those perfumers are looking for interesting ingredients. They see the sweet, sticky substance washes up on the shore. They smell it. They say, oh la la, qu'est-ce que c'est? What is it? It smells so beautiful. And it is ambergris. And we call it amber for short because it has that amber color. Do you know that about 3 or 4 weeks ago on Facebook or on one of these apps, I saw an article that a Chinese fisherman was walking along the beach, found this huge 30 kilos stuff of ambergris washed up on the shore. It has made his life. It was real, pure ambergris, $1 million worth, and he is now retired for life.
No. My, oh my. Start walking those beaches, guys.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, this has been so amazing, Sue. I know you have lots of stories, but we also respect your time. But I think everyone really enjoyed your story, your journey, your courage. The key words that came out, one of the 3 of them is never give up. And as entrepreneurs, that is it's such a true statement. We never give up. And when opportunity knocks and doors knock, go through it and don't have any fear stop you. And you certainly displayed that.
I really appreciate it. I would be delighted to hear from people. I will just tell you how I came to my never give up. It's so interesting because it actually manifested. I had a group of people come into my studio when I was downtown in Tribeca. About 10 women came in and they had these beautiful t-shirts, and one was blue and one was pink and green and yellow and all these different colors with different sayings on their shirts, around on their chest. And I was in the middle of my presentation. I suddenly said, ladies, what is going on? What are these beautiful shirts that you're wearing with all these wonderful affirmative somebody's got one of my products. Judy, what is that? Yes, Judy. Oh my goodness, she has one of my fragrances.
This is hot pine.
Hot pine and musky fruit.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, where
Oh
did
my
you get
goodness.
that from, Judy? When did I meet you?
This was a couple years ago, 26, 14, 15, 16, or 17. I'm not sure. But it was at a bridal show.
Oh my goodness. I'd love to
Wow.
see you. Come and say hello. Show me your
I'm a
face and say
mess.
hello.
I'm a mess. I so need a shower right now. No way.
No, I'm sure you know. Oh my goodness, that's so sweet. Thank you for that. Oh gosh,
Wow.
how lovely. That was a little sample. It was a bridal shower and they invited me, and those are the little bottles that they wanted. But I do have some, I just have to show you some of these. These are some of the atomizers that we use now. And these, I love these because they're, I call them twist and swivel.
Wow.
You twist,
Yeah,
you
they're so
swivel.
great, and then you just fill it up. They're fabulous. Yeah, very
and
nice.
this was too. So I'm actually Scentbird is launching my fragrances next month. I'm very excited. I don't know if you know Scentbird, but I've come up with 5 different fragrances. This is called Artisan Scents by Sue Phillips, and this is my fresh blend. I have fresh, floral, woodsy, spicy, and fruity.
Oh
So
my goodness, wonderful.
thank
Well, what
you.
was
So,
Yes, that's amazing. That's great, Judy. Thank you for sharing that. That's
thank you for
wonderful.
sharing it, Judy.
I had to find it. I was like, I know it's in this room somewhere. It's in the drawer. I was like digging.
I probably have your formula in my database, because if you went to a bridal shower, I don't know what your last name is, but I can certainly find it, I'm sure, because we usually take everybody's name in our database. But anyway, back to the ladies. So the one lady said, well, this is our yes ministry. I said, what's a yes ministry? She said, well, this is our affirmative ministry where we talk about positivity and affirmations. I said, gosh, that's wonderful. She said, Sue, would you like something? Would you like a shirt? I said, yes, I'd love one. She said, well, what would you like? I said, well, first I'm in New York, so I'd like a black shirt with gold lettering. And I'd like it to say, never give up. She said, no problem. So in the mail, the next week comes this beautiful shirt, great quality t-shirt with the letters, don't give up. So I was a little disappointed, but I was very grateful, and I thanked her and I called her. I said, thank you so much. I said, but it says, don't give up. She said, oh, what did you want? I said, never give up. So she sent me a never give up. So guess what? I have a never give up, don't give up, never give up, don't give up. I have all these shirts now.
The message is strong. Oh my goodness, Sue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
It's been
Thank you,
awesome. Awesome.
I would
And you know
love
what I want to say, what we love about you, the authenticity of you and your story. And that's, any dreams that you have, you go forward, never give up, as you say, never give up.
Thank you so much.
And
Gabby, I appreciate this so, and so lovely to see all of you lovely ladies. I wish I could see you all. I see your names, and I thank you all for coming in. And Josie and Gabby, thank you so much. And all of you, please stay in touch with me. And by the way, if anybody does have any issues with COVID, or they know of anybody who has COVID sensory problems, please reach out to me. I'd love to speak.
We're going to put your contact information in there, and people can send you an email if they have any further questions. We'll be doing all that for sure. So we're going to do our draw just while you're online. And normally you would be doing the draw, but we're kind of going to have to do it. And I'm just going to pick all the names that are in there that are online. And it's Janet Armstrong. Is she?
Oh,
there you go, Janet Armstrong. So. Congratulations, Janet. We'll be in touch with you.
Janet.
And we have another one to do for the beautiful signed copy of The Power of Perfume. Excuse my phone. I should have moved that. Loretta Whiting.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. I just managed to unmute myself. So thank you very much, Gabby, and thank you, Sue. This is very interesting and inspiring.
Well,
I'm so delighted.
Yes.
Thank you all, and thank you for the opportunity. And if I ever come to Ontario, I would be thrilled to meet you all for sure.
I hope to visit you one day in New York, Sue.
Please, please. You can find me, SuePhillips.com or Scenterprises. I'm thanks to the COVID thing, I'm pretty much all over the internet, so I can't do anything wrong because people find me.
Well,
Is it in the townhouse? The townhouse with the shoes, or is it?
No, I'm not there. That was Vanessa's. I was there for a year. And I had to move in August because she was renovating her townhouse. She's really redoing her whole boutique. So now I'm on 75th and Lexington in a place called the Cocktail Boutique, but I share it with seven or 8 other designers. But I actually am looking to get a new boutique on my own. So that's in the works. So that'll be for 2022. Actually, really exciting things are happening in 2022. I'm very, as I said, I never give up. I just keep on going. So
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you. Congratulations.
And I love the name, the Cocktail Boutique. That's pretty unique. I love it. That's what I love about New York. And you know what, Sue, one day when we're able to possibly do events in person again, would be nice to have you come up and meet our ladies.
I would love to.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
By the way, I just have to, I hope you don't mind me telling you, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in San Diego.
Yes.
I'm doing a scent dinner. It's for the GSFE, the Global Society of Female Entrepreneurs. It's a nonprofit for female entrepreneurs, and it's going to be in San Diego. And instead of just doing a regular dinner, and they're doing a Christmas holiday event, the San Diego Ballet and the San Diego Orchestra, I suggested doing this multi-sensory event. So we're actually doing a scent dinner, and every course will have a flavor, fragrance, and wine component. I call it sip, sniff, and savor. You sip the wine, you sniff the fragrance, and then you savor the food.
Nice.
So it's going to be a lovely event. And I love to do things like that.
Lovely.
We'll definitely have you up.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Sue. Thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope that you sincerely enjoyed it as much as Josie and I have. It's been an honor to have you here, Sue, and we will definitely be staying in touch. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And a big hug from
Thank you
Canadians
so
to you.